Your 2 a.m. wake up isn't what you think. You wake up. The room is dark. The house is silent. You turn your head slowly toward the clock, 2:13 a.m. And immediately, your brain does what brains do best. It panics in high definition. Great, I am awake. Again. Tomorrow is ruined. My sleep is broken. My life is falling apart. I will never recover from this. Which is impressive, really, because your brain has managed to turn a quiet Tuesday night into a medical thriller. But here's the strange part. For much of human history, waking up in the middle of the night may not have been considered a problem at all. It may have been normal. Not for everyone, not everywhere, not as a perfect rule, but enough that historians found references to it again and again. People used to talk about something called first sleep and second sleep, which means the night was not always one solid block. It had a middle, a quiet, mysterious gap. And that gap may be the reason your 2 a.m. wake-up feels so strangely familiar. The historian Roger Ekirch searched through old diaries, court records, medical texts, prayer books, and literature from pre-industrial Europe. And buried inside them, he kept finding the same idea. First sleep, second sleep. People would go to bed not long after darkness fell. They would sleep for a few hours. Then, sometime after midnight, they would wake. But they did not always treat it like an emergency. They prayed, they talked, they thought, they read, they did small chores. Some visited neighbors. Some couples used the time for intimacy. Some simply lay there, floating in the strange quiet between dreams. Then, after a while, they went back to sleep. That was second sleep. To us, this sounds odd, because we have been taught that good sleep looks like this. Lie down, disappear for 8 hours, wake up refreshed, cheerful, and emotionally available. Which is already suspicious, because almost nobody wakes up like that unless they are in a mattress advertisement. But modern sleep has a modern problem: light. For most of human history, when the sun went down, the world became properly dark. Not slightly dim with a Wi-Fi router blinking in the corner dark. Actual dark. The kind of dark where night was not just a time, it was an environment. Then humans invented better candles, then gas lamps, then street lights, then electricity, then phones. And finally, we created the most unnatural object in the bedroom, a glowing rectangle that can show you world news, bank balances, family arguments, and a raccoon stealing cat food at 11:48 p.m. Your body has an internal clock. It uses light as one of its strongest signals. When darkness arrives, your brain begins preparing the body for sleep. Melatonin rises, temperature changes, alertness drops. But bright light at night confuses the message. It tells the brain, not yet, stay awake, the day is still happening. So bedtime moves later, night gets shorter, and an older pattern may get squeezed into one modern sleep block. This is where the story becomes more than history. In 1992, psychiatrist Thomas Ware ran a small but fascinating experiment. Healthy men were placed in 14 hours of darkness every night for several weeks. At first, they slept a lot. Then, after some time, their sleep began to change. By around the 4th week, their sleep split into 2 blocks. A first sleep, a calm waking period. Then, a second sleep. That does not prove that every human is supposed to sleep this way. The study was small. Only 7 men. 7 people is not humanity. It is barely enough people to move a couch without someone saying, "Actually, I think it should go over there." But it does show something important. The human body can fall into a 2-part sleep rhythm when exposed to long winter darkness. So when people say, maybe humans once slept in 2 phases, that is not nonsense. There is historical evidence. There is biological evidence. But there is also a warning. The evidence is mixed. A 2015 study looked at 3 non-industrial societies, the Hadza, the San, and the Tsimane. And those groups did not show a regular first sleep, second sleep pattern in the way people sometimes claim. Their sleep was mostly consolidated. So the clean, viral version of this story would be, humans are meant to sleep in 2 shifts. But that is too strong, and probably wrong. The better version is this. Before modern lighting, many people appear to have slept in 2 phases, and lab research shows the human body can return to that pattern under long winter darkness. That is the real science. Messier, less clickable.
More honest.
and much more interesting. Because this story is not saying your sleep should be split. It is saying something gentler. Waking up at night does not automatically mean you are broken. That matters, because the worst part of a 2 a.m. wake-up is often not the waking. It is the fear. You wake up, then you check the time, then you calculate. If I fall asleep now, I can still get 4 hours and 47 minutes. Now 4 hours and 46. Now 4 hours and 45. Congratulations, you have turned bedtime into accounting. Then you grab your phone, just for 1 minute. But your phone is not a candle. It is a tiny sun with notifications. And now your brain receives exactly the wrong message. Daytime has returned. There may be emails. There may be danger. There may be discount shoes. Stay alert. So the old quiet gap becomes modern insomnia. Not because waking was always the problem, but because we added panic, clocks, screens, and the expectation that sleep must behave like a perfect machine. Maybe the real villain is not the 2 a.m. wake-up. Maybe the villain is what we do next. The old night had space in it. Modern night has pressure. Sleep now. Sleep perfectly. Sleep efficiently. Wake up productive. Track your sleep. Score your sleep. Optimize your sleep. Fear your sleep. Which is a very modern way to ruin one of the most natural things the body does. So what should you do if you wake in the night? Not medical advice, not a miracle hack, but a simple shift in thinking. First, do not instantly label it a disaster. If you wake calmly and eventually drift back to sleep, it may just be a normal variation. Second, avoid blasting your eyes with light, especially phone light. The phone is very good at many things. Helping you return peacefully to sleep is not usually one of them. Third, let the middle of the night be boring. Boring is underrated. Boring is practically a sleep medication with no branding department. Lie still. Breathe slowly. Think gently. Keep the room dark. If you need to get up, do something quiet and dim. No news, no arguments, no financial decisions. No sudden online shopping for an air fryer at 2:31 a.m. And if sleep problems are frequent, severe, or affecting your life, get proper help. Because this story is not saying insomnia is fake. Insomnia is real. Sleep disorders are real. Modern stress is real. But not every midnight waking deserves panic. Sometimes the body may simply be passing through a doorway humans once knew well. A doorway between first sleep and second sleep. A quiet place that modern life forgot how to name. And there is something comforting about that. Because when you wake at 2 a.m., you may feel alone, but you are not. Across centuries, people woke in the dark too. A farmer in a cold room. A mother listening to the house. A monk whispering a prayer. A writer remembering a dream. A couple talking softly between two sleeps. And now you, staring at the ceiling, wondering why your brain has opened its eyes before morning. Maybe it has not betrayed you. Maybe it has remembered something. Something older than streetlights, older than alarm clocks, older than the idea that every human night must be one neat block. Maybe your 2 a.m. wake-up is not proof that your sleep is broken. Maybe it is an ancient rhythm tapping quietly on the door. And the best thing you can do is not panic. Do not feed it light. Do not feed it fear. Let the night stay night, and let sleep come back when it is ready. First sleep, a quiet pause. Second sleep, the body may know the path better than we think. If you enjoyed this strange little journey, subscribe and help us reach 1 million curious minds. There are many more weird facts hiding in plain sight, and we intend to bother all of them.